Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis. We will be discussing 5 to 6 important articles out of the Hindu newspaper. Now, today is the Sunday newspaper. Therefore, we have what we call as FAQs, but there is no editorial. So, we'll manage that through the understanding of what the FAQs have to tell us. So, when we talk about the topics which we are going to cover today, the first one would be how crowd disasters are increasing and what is the way we are trying to manage it. Then we'll talk about a problematic tradition coming out of the Supreme Court and a judgment which is going to impact every classroom in India. We're going to talk about that. Then with regards to stubble burning, now we are in that season when stubble burning is going to become important. Some interesting data, very paradoxical data. Then textile firms, something which you already know, but there is a proper formal article about it. And in the end, with Bihar elections around, a lot of schemes are being talked about. We'll discuss that also. So 6 to 7 important articles. 3 of them are mains oriented. 3 of them are prelims and mains. You can say prelims and mains oriented and more towards the factual side. We'll use that in our preparation in that regard. So let's start our analysis with crowd disasters. So if you rewind back 1 year, there are multiple points where crowd management failed and that in turn led to the death of multiple, you can say now the death toll is above 100 in that regard. One of the most recent one would be the Karur one. Before that, it would be the RCB, you can say victory parade in Bangalore. Before that, there was again a movie which in turn led to the death of a person. Therefore, the idea is very simple that crowd management in India is failing. That is for sure. Now, the context for this article obviously is the recent incident in Tamil Nadu with regards to the TVK rally, where 41 people were killed because of a pure failure in crowd management. And therefore, now there's a one-man committee which has been established by the Tamil Nadu government to create a framework for that state. So now there are 2 things which we have to understand. What is the national framework? What is the state-specific framework? What is their, you can say, legality? Are they enforceable? Are they not? That is a question. And what is scientific crowd management? This is a very important word, scientific crowd management. You should know this because as an IAS, IPS officer, specifically as an IPS officer, crowd management will be a very important role which you will have. And with regards to how arrangements are done, crowd movement is a science in that regard, which is not being followed in multiple states. So what we have to understand first is, what is the context? Context, I hope, is clear. Be it the RCB incident, be it the Karur incident, there is enough to tell us that crowd management in India is failing. Now we have to understand what are the frameworks which exist. Are they enforceable? Are they binding in that regard? So when we talk about the frameworks at the national level, we have close to 4 major frameworks which are followed. And one of the biggest issues with all of these frameworks is one thing only, which is all of them are advisories, they are non-binding, and they cannot be enforced by the state or the center through an act in that regard. Therefore, if it is followed, it is a good thing. If it isn't, there is no way to make the organization, private institution, or the state follow it. That is where the biggest flaw lies. All of them are advisory, you can say, frameworks. So the first one comes of the BPRND, which is the Bureau of Police Research and Development, which gives us a comprehensive guideline on crowd management. And this introduces the word scientific crowd management. We'll discuss it in the end. What does that mean? But again, this is a pure advisory. Nobody really follows this. Then we have the NDMA structure in that regard, where we have crowd management frameworks and guidelines, which basically talk about how we have to understand the plan, the whole risk assessment, the idea that how real-time monitoring happens. So scientific crowd management actually is based on certain principles, which actually NDMA has also pushed through in that regard. Further, we have what is called as the National Institute of Disaster, the NIDM framework, which conducts training for capacity building. So, for example, certain police institutions, certain you can say reserve police institutions send their men to be trained in crowd management in the NIDM. And the Indian Railways has one specific structure for crowded railway stations. Now, obviously, we recently had another, in February itself, we had a major incident in Mumbai wherein because of the crowd, there was another stampede. We have had multiple stampedes in crowded, you can say, railway stations. So the Indian Railways has developed a certain understanding, okay, there are 60 such railway stations which need to be taken into consideration. But the whole point is all of this is advisory. So therefore, they really have no meaning. They really have no meaning. So during the Kumbh Mela, we had, yes, the Delhi incident itself. So if you look at crowd management and crowd-based disasters, in a 6 months, you can say a timeline, at least 5 to 6 such incidents are happening. And that is happening because nobody is learning from their mistakes. And that is why the national framework has fully failed. So when we talk about the national framework, national framework, be it BPRND, be it NDMA, be it NIDM, or be it Indian Railways. The problem is that this is called a decentralized understanding. It's called a decentralized understanding. There is no central or overarching policy. There is no act. There is no legal framework. And more than that, all of them are based on advisory. And the biggest question is, there is no accountability also. Think of it like this. There is no accountability. Crowd management based disasters are a failure of the organization, of the institution, or of the armed force, or be it the police forces, or be it the institutions involved. But because it is considered to be natural, so common, there is no accountability fixed itself. So in the, for example, Bangalore incident, the responsibility was pushed away from the police to the organizers, and the organizers were, in a way, you can say, there was no better anticipation by the police also. So the responsibility was fixed on the private institution rather than the public institution. And that is where there is a lot of issues with regards to accountability and who should be held responsible. It is not a natural disaster. This is not an act of God. Purely not an act of God. If this is not an act of God, therefore, where does the responsibility go? Where does the buck stop? That is again not as decided. And if there is a lot of, you can say, compartmentalization at the central level, equally at the state level, there are again multiple, you can say, advisories. For example, if I go at the state level, after the RCB incident, Karnataka is now thinking of introducing, this is a proposed bill, crowd control, management of crowds and venues of mass gathering bill, for creating a certain framework where there are fines, there is certain imprisonment, there is certain, you can say, penalties. The Karnataka police has also created an SOP where they are trying to figure out what should be the military, what should be the medical preparedness, the fire preparedness. But again, this is ex post facto, which is that once the incident has happened, they are now reacting. It is a reactionary policy, not prevention better than cure. They are just doing preventive action. Now, preventive action, again, this could be inadequate. This could be inadequate. Same way, Uttar Pradesh government has brought in a guidelines for management of crowd. Again, how religious and cultural events could be there. But in the Kumbh Mela, we saw that there was again a mini stampede in that regard. So it is not that it did not happen. Further, Gujarat has a training, you can say training manual from the Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management, where it gives training and advisory on how things have to work. Don't have to learn this. I'm just telling you the spectrum of policies which is there. Then Uttarakhand, after the Mansa Devi stampede in July, they brought in the concept of how encroachment should be removed. The idea is there is again a major understanding of how crowd management is a reactionary concept rather than a concept which actually should be based on prevention. Risk management is not done. There is no understanding of disaster management. There's no understanding. The fire risk management is not done. Maharashtra, same. After the Kumbh Mela related incidents and the Nasik Triambakeshwar Kumbh Mela authority, which is the next Kumbh Mela is going to happen in Nasik, they're trying to figure it out. Again, a bill has been proposed. Tamil Nadu, again, after the rally, they have now proposed something. Multiple police administrative orders are there, and this is the biggest issue. The issue which we all are facing as of right now is that we have at the central level and at the state level a lot of different frameworks. We have framework here. We have frameworks here. But all are based on once the incidents happen, once the disaster happens, or rather we'll say they are reactionary in nature. What they do is that they respond to rather than predict. And this is going to lead to decentralization. There is no one policy, and when there is no one policy, there is no proper implementation. And in none of the bills which we are talking about, there has been a talk about the concept of accountability. If today people will be held accountable for actions such as this, there will be some form of improvement. This reminds us of how the British used to respond to the famines. If you've gone through modern Indian history, you would know that the British used to always create policy for famines after the famines used to happen. And it was always not enough. And it used to just be a moving target in that regard. Same way, it's not that only 2025 had incidents. We have close to 10 years of data where thousands of people have lost their lives because of poor crowd management. And therein lies the problem. You cannot just rely on the idea that I will respond to what is going to happen rather than predict. So do we understand the problem here, which is basically decentralized nature and fragmented policies, which is in turn leading to this whole landscape where everything is advisory, nothing is binding on no one, and there is no accountability. So binding, accountability, and the idea there is no concept itself. Mock drills to manage the crowds, and Manisha, that is there, but mock drills can never emulate what is called as an emergency situation. Contingency plans are not there. Contingency plans, if 5 people is the number of people you are actually thinking of are going to come for that crowd, and 50 people come, where is the plan for 50? What happened in Karur was this, right? They delayed the rally quite a lot, and the crowd was such that it totally became out of hand. And that is where the scientific crowd management comes through. So what I want from you is that do you understand the context? Do you understand the problem? A yes would mean, yes, sir, we understand. Okay, yes, this is the issue. Now let's look at how we go forward. What is the way forward in that regard? Yes, synergy of agencies, cross-agency cooperation is equally important. Okay, now we understood the context. We understand the issues, which is based on decentralization, which is based on the idea of being non-binding, and the issue of ad hocism, which is that nobody is really accountable for anything, no accountability. Now, in that context, what is the way forward? What is the way forward? The way forward is to follow what is called as the scientific crowd management principles. Now, what is the concept of crowd management? See again, Sirat, simple, straightforward concept. There was, because this may be your first class, there was a stampede which happened recently in Karur. That stampede in turn, you can say, garnered a reaction from the Tamil Nadu government to create a one-man commission, which is going to give what is called as guidelines and certain frameworks. Crowd management-based disasters is nothing new in India. It has been happening for the past 10 months in multiple cases, in multiple contexts. And the issues revolve around the idea that there is decentralized policy, too many structures, 4 structures at the central level, every state has its own understanding. And non-binding and ad hocism means that none of them are actually in a way accountable for what is happening, and it is not binding on them to follow those concepts itself. So this non-accountability and synergy would mean non-cooperation between agencies leads to this understanding of having crowd disasters. So therefore, the way forward is following what is called as scientific crowd management principles. Now, this is the basic structure. These are the basic guidelines which together are called as scientific crowd management. Now, when do we know that a crowd management, or rather crowd-based disaster is going to come? So it says that when there are more than 5 people per square meter, it is imminent that this density is going to lead to a space in which will lead to some form of issues or disasters for sure. Then the second principle on which it is that the drones and constant monitoring should be there. There is enough monitoring and AI models which can, in a way, find hotspots, meaning on the same road, there can be certain places where the density is close to 5, but also density is less than 1. So, or rather close to 1 or close to 2. So they can move the crowd around according to the density itself. Therefore, we have to also use this idea that there should be no bottlenecks, slopes and counterflows. What does this mean? See, for example, there is a road which is 10 meter wide. On that crowd is going, and then the road in front of it is 5 meters only. What will happen is, this is called a bottleneck. All the crowd will, and this what happens in Indian roads quite a lot, all of this will lead to a certain choke point. Further, if the movement is towards the venue, there should be no movement away from the venue, meaning it should be circular. It should not be that we are going in the same direction on the same road, people are coming back. That creates confusion, that creates more problems. Further, the issue is slopes should not be there. For example, there's a sudden, you can say, flight of stairs, but nobody has been given a certain warning about it. That can lead to people basically talking with each other, or who are not paying attention, falling down. That could lead to a cascading effect. So these things need to always be avoided. Further, if you, and this is the individual, you can say individual based understanding. If you are being pushed in a certain direction, don't resist it. You should go with the flow, because what will happen is, if you resist it, there is a chance of destabilizing others and yourself itself. Further, the issue is, when the crowd is together, the biggest issue is that your lungs don't get enough oxygen. So that is called a moment of what is called as prevention of hypoxia. Is you should hold your hands next to your chest, so that nobody can decompress your chest and lead to a certain moment of you being suffocated to death in that regard. Further, you should always have some distance between you and the other person who's going ahead. If you by chance fall, don't stay in the same space. You should roll away and protect your neck and your head. And as a crowd management understanding, the less obstructions you have, the better it is, because it will be easier for the crowd to move around. Now what you do with this information is, these are the main good practices of crowd management. Now what you do is that for your introduction, you always use the current affairs, which is the recent intelligence. Issues we are clear about. Now the way forward is basically following these principles. If you can produce any of them in the examination, you are sorted. Meaning, if you can write 4 to 5 points out of this, you can basically slopes, the concept of constant monitoring, the less than, you can say more than 5 people in a square meter. If you can use these words, you're sorted to write a question for answer for this. For example, India needs a more robust crowd management strategy and its proper training and implementation. Comment. To answer this type of question, you need to know the principles of crowd management. Trust me, as a civil servant, this type of information is very, very valuable, because crowd management is a failure of the local police, of the local administration. It is less of the institutions. Private institutions, private players will always bring in crowds. It is a responsibility of the public servant to make sure that the right framework is there. They will always do cost cutting. We have to, as you can say, as an IAS officer, as an IPS officer, it will be important for you to resist their, you can say, cost cutting, and also create a structure in which you give mandatory understanding. So this is a very important concept and topic generally for us. So I hope that you will learn from this in that regard, right? You can use this in ethics. You can use this as a certain, you can say, interview question about crowd management. Use these principles. Sir, for the issues, there is a need to mitigate further. Just mention, you just elaborate on each one of them, one line, Manisha. That will be good enough. But in many cases, many rumors spread where crowd become overwhelmed. See, Anushka, rumors and people, the crowd moving in certain directions, you can't control that. But why create, see, if there is a venue jiska capacity 50,000 hai, obviously a private player will sell 1 lakh tickets and they will make sure that there is overcrowding. As a you can say public institution, you have to make sure that firstly you stop something like this to happen, and second, you should not then plan for 50,000. You should plan for 1,50,000. That is where rumors, these things cannot be controlled. In no way or form they cannot be controlled. But at least you can have contingency plans and a structure where you force the player to, in a way, have contingency plans and better crowd management. Can't leave it to God. ऐसा नहीं भगवान भरोसे छोड़ दिया. It's like that, okay, 50,000 capacity, 75,000 have come. Let's see what's happened. That is what is the training of a civil servant, is to respond to and be ready for any contingency. I hope you get this point. Yes, yes, Manisha, that will help you to replicate it in any answer. Are we sorted about this topic? Yes or no? Then we move to the second one. CTET, equally interesting. Come on. Yes, sir. Okay. Now the second article is based on a certain, you can say, Supreme Court order, which is going to turn out to be problematic in the next 2 years. Tamil Nadu government has already challenged this. Other states are going to follow. And recently the Supreme Court has given a judgment. See, for example, if you want to become an IAS officer, you give the UPSC, CSC, right? You give the civil services examination. If you want to become an assistant professor, you give the examination of the UGC NET, which is conducted by NTA. If you want to, for example, go into defense, you give NDA or IMA examination. And if you want to go into, for example, staff selection, we have SSC. Now for teachers, there is if you want to become a teacher and teach in schools, there's something called CTET. Combined Teachers Eligibility Test, CTET. Now, CTET is an exam. If today you want to become a teacher, you have to clear CTET. That is the minimum eligibility criteria. Minimum eligibility criteria is seated only. Now, the problem is that majority of the teachers are non-seated. What does that mean? See, for example, take Tamil Nadu as an example. Tamil Nadu has close to 4,49,850 teachers, out of which 3,90,000 teachers are non-TET qualified, teachers eligibility test qualified. CTET qualification is important because it is considered to be the minimum guarantee. It's like, for example, JEE, NEET, CTET. Now, Supreme Court has recently argued through an order that if you are a teacher who does not have CTET or TET in that regard, and you want to teach further, from the date of judgment in the next 2 years, if you don't get TET qualification, once the 2 years is over, you will automatically be asked to compulsorily retire. So the structure which basically Supreme Court has argued is, if you are a teacher, from class 1 to 8th and you are CTET qualified, then sorted, no issues whatsoever. However, if you are non-CTET and the order comes in 2025, if by 2027, 1st September, for example, you do not get CTET, you have to clear this examination. If you don't get it, on this date, you will be made to compulsory retire. Meaning, the Supreme Court is giving 2 years to teachers to clear this examination who are non-CTET. Now, the states, even Tamil Nadu is arguing, this is not a practical order to go about, because firstly, it only applies on non-minority institutions. Minority institution, for example, St. Stephen's College, for example, Sri Venkateshwara College, or for example, Jamia Millia Islamia, the institutions, be it linguistic or be it a religious-based, you can say, minority institution, it does not apply on that. However, it does apply on non-minority institutions, all the schools which are under the Right to Information Act 2009. Now, this is where they have given some form of, you can say, relaxation also. The relaxation is that if you are going to retire in less than 5 years, then you don't need to follow this concept. But if you have more than 5 years to retire, you need CTET for sure. Basically, the concept is, Supreme Court is saying, yes, it is a harsh order, but we believe that this is for teacher quality, this is for teacher understanding, and this is for teacher, you can say, eligibility. CTET has to be there. Now, what Tamil Nadu, where 3,90,000 teachers do not have CTET, and other states, even Kerala, are arguing is, this may lead to a moment where most of the teachers, they may clear it, they may not clear it. They may also in a way resist it. This will lead to empty classrooms. Students are there, but there are no teachers. And their biggest issue is that if you are using the Right to Information Act 2009, and there was a memorandum which came in 2010. After 2010, every teacher has cleared CTET as it is. How can you retrospectively apply something like this? How can you retrospectively apply something like this? That is where the real problem lies. They are saying, why are you retrospectively on any future appointment? Fine, that is okay. As it is, after 2010, we are doing this practice of only taking CTET teachers. But these 3,90,000 teachers, very senior teachers in that regard, who have joined the services, who have joined the teaching service before 2010, why are you retrospectively making it the examination? Now, your argument could be that teaching quality is not good enough. But throughout India, the issue has been enrollment ratios, accessibility. teachers quality as it is, you are now having new generation of teachers which is coming through. This may lead to an artificial disaster crisis where all teachers are ineligible to teach. And one more thing which the Supreme Court has argued in this is, why are minority institutions being kept outside this? So there are two parts to that judgment. Why are the minority institutions not under the RTE Act 2009? Because this is leading to opaque and a lot of problematic traditions coming through. They are stopping admissions. They have their arbitrary understandings. They don't allow the reservation policy to be even applied in minority institutions. Second is the CTET order. Both are right now sub judice, so we can't really say anything. But the Supreme Court has noticed that minority institutions are evading the right to information, the right of education. I'm sorry, not right to information, right to education. The RTE Act, the right to education, that universal education in that regard is being denied in minority institutions. So the idea is, why are minority institutions kept outside the same section 2N of the RT, which is right to children's free compulsory education. So these are two very important things which are now in the Supreme Court's, you can say, appellate jurisdiction right now, because the appeal has gone to the from the Tamil Nadu government. Other states are going to follow, which is right to education is important. Teachers training, you've already made a certain understanding that after 2010 it has to be used. But what is the point of retrospectively applying it to every teacher who is joined before 2010? And why are minority institutions evading all of this? So therefore, already teacher to student ratio is a problem. You are now creating another problem within the education system. You can have your own perspectives here. You can support this or not support this, but the point is, Tamil Nadu is arguing that there's a better way of doing this. There's a better way of doing this. You can do in-service training, you can do capacity building, you can do refreshers course, you can do bridge programs. Do teachers training. Now, why are you already creating, the education system is already strained. Why are you creating more strain on the system itself? And that is where Section 23(1) of the RT, Right to Education Act, which is being quoted for CTET being essential qualification, they are saying that there is also Section 23(2), which says that 5 years of leniency or 5 years of exemptions can be given by the central government. This, the national standard argument, the argument that on any future recruitment it is fine, but why retrospectively destroy this whole system? So therefore, there is a better way of doing this. There's a better way of doing this, but you're not doing it. So let's try to summarize what we've done, because a lot of information is there. I created a certain mind map for you for the first article. Let me do it for you here also. Can I do that? Which is lot of information, lot of perspectives. We can stand on two sides on this. But the idea is 23(2) and 2N. The question is with regards to that. So, see, Right to Education Act 2009. Cutoff date is already 2010. Anybody after 2010, CTET is a basic requirement. Now, the question with regards to this is, if it is a basic requirement, there is a relaxation of 5 years if there is a shortage under Section 23, and this is also under Section 23, that this is a minimum criteria. But majority of the teachers were recruited prior to 2010, and in that regard you are now arguing that CTET has to become minimum, you can say, qualification. So you are retrospectively applying the concept. When you are doing that, you have said 2025 the order has come, 2027 everybody should have CTET. If not, they will retire. Now, the problem with this is firstly retrospective application. You are basically pushing it to a point where this act did not exist before that. And over and above that, the teacher to student ratio is already strained, and maybe the teachers would not like to give it. And the idea is it should be a voluntary process, not a forced process in that. And all of this is only applying to non-minority institutions. The second question is coming, why are minority institutions also not be, or why should not they be a part of this whole regime itself? So therefore, there is nothing definitive here. Do understand this point? This is all under questioning by the Supreme Court and a new bench which will come through. Therefore, there is no guarantee that this will remain. But the question which remains is, do we really need to do this right now? Because as it is in the next 10 years, automatically all teachers will be seated. Quality of teaching should be good, perfectly fine. Quality of teaching should be good, that is our priority. But in states where there are already 1 teacher to 100 ratio, why are you putting that teacher under stress and then further leading to him or her to give up this job because it's too complicated? Minority, see, Devendra, within the landscape of education, there is always this division between minority and non-minority. Meaning the same eligibility criteria which may go for DU will not go for Jamia Millia Islamia or, for example, Aligarh. That is the way these institutions were created. They are exempted from it. But now that is being questioned also. That logic that minority institutions should have freedom is also being questioned. That there is a larger politics to it, that's a separate issue altogether. But linguistic and religious minority institutions should be also taken into consideration. And yes, the question which then comes through is, does CTET automatically mean that you are qualified enough? Because experience also matters. Experience also matters. So by doing something like this, you are questioning the prowess and the experience of the teachers also. So there's a whole controversy around this which we don't know, but I hope now you are conscious of it. There is no definitive question which I can ask right now, or you can be asked in that sense, because it's a sub judice issue. It's a sub judice issue. Can online learning replace physical? It has to be blended learning. It always has to be blended learning. There is no substitute to online. There's no substitute to offline. It has to be blended. For teaching school level, it has to be blended learning. The CTET applies only to government institutions. No, it applies to, Manisha, non-minority private institutions also. Meaning nobody is going to keep you as a permanent teacher in a private school also if you don't have CTET. Any school which is under the right of Article 2N of the right to education, it has to follow this. It has to follow this. Right. So is this sort of divide? It's not a divide. See, sometimes you don't fix something which is not broken. This is what is actually happening. They're shaking the tree, but this tree does not need shaking. It needs nurturing and it needs fertilizer. It needs water. Rather than creating more positions for teachers, there are thousands of CTET qualified people who work for 200, 300 rupees per hour in Delhi government schools and in schools across India, Bihar being a very good example. There is a better way to eliminate teachers who are not good. And there are thousands of aspirants who have cleared the CTET examination but have no jobs whatsoever. Rather than creating jobs, you are now creating impediments. And that is where there will be more hatred between CTET and non-CTET qualified teachers also. See, what the idea, yes, Krishna, that is true. The idea is that by training themselves for CTET, they will become better. But the problem is this only, right? You are trying to create an obstacle, a certain time bomb, which is going to explode in what if teachers start to go on strikes? Tamil Nadu state has majority teachers non-seated. All of them say that we will not teach. All of this is allowed. That will in turn lead to further issues, and that who is going to be impacted the most? The children. So again, as I said, lot of information. This is going to develop further. We'll update you about it, but I hope you understand the two fundamental topics which we had to discuss today. I hope that you understand why crowd management is an issue in India and how this CTET is now going to create a bigger issue in the larger landscape of the education system in India. Are we clear? Yes, that is the whole point, Manisha. We can have teachers training, we can have outcome-based understanding, we can have better monitoring, we can have better structures which are there. But the point is we are trying to create a system in which we are now retrospectively applying something. So imagine, for example, you see UPSC says that, okay, you have qualified as an IAS officer, but now you also have to give an examination later in your service. So it disturbs the flow. It becomes problematic in that regard, right? Now, the third article is a very interesting one. And it talks about a very interesting paradox. There was a recent report which came from Punjab, and that report said that there's a 70% decrease. Just to give you context, this is called stubble burning. Stubble burning is once the paddy crop is cut, the roots remain, and there are certain, you can say, stubble which is left in the ground and in the land. So the most cost-effective way and the easiest way to remove stubble and also add fertility into the soil because of that burning is to burn it, which is called stubble burning. Very common in Haryana, Punjab, and the whole wheat belt in that regard, specifically Haryana, Punjab. Now, stubble burning in that regard is an environmental crisis because it leads to addition of more carbon into the atmosphere, and Delhi will start to choke, and the PM 2.5 and 10 levels will increase as soon as stubble burning starts in Haryana and Punjab. Now, because of that, there's been a lot of monitoring through remote sensing and through the ISRO. There has been a lot of monitoring which happens. But what this report says is, between 2023 and 2024, the number of incidents of stubble burning or number of incidents of burning in that regard have gone down from 36,000 to 10,000. 70% decrease is there. So the idea is there has been a 70% decrease as told by the Punjab Remote Sensing Center and the Punjab Pollution Control Board. The incidence of farm fires, which is stubble burning, has decreased by 70%. But what is the paradox here is, the same report tells us that residual burning for paddy, burnt area, that has increased from 19.17 lakh, 14 lakh to 17. Meaning, burning as indicated has reduced. But when you look at the satellite image, you see dark black patches. So somehow there are 70% less burning indicated within the information, but the burnt area has increased in that. And this is where the paradox remains. And the Punjab farmers have found a very interesting way of actually figuring this out. See, burnt area is indicated weekly. Farm burning data is indicated daily. Now, what they're actually doing is very interesting. For example, this is a certain place in Punjab. Pay attention. This is how it is they're doing. This is a place in Punjab. Now, what they've done somehow, that is a failure of the institutions itself. They have figured out at what time does the satellite, remote sensing satellite, go over this area. So remote sensing satellites mostly are sun synchronous. Sun synchronous means they cross a certain geography at a certain given point of time. So for example, at 4 p.m. daily, the satellite crosses this area and takes an image of this area. This image is taken at 4 p.m. Right? What they have done is, they know the time at which every day the satellite will go over to this area. Therefore, what they are doing is, before 4 p.m. they are not burning anything. Once the satellite crosses, they start to burn here. So what happens is, in that day's data, for example, 25th October data, it says that there was no burning. But when The next day it comes, again it shows no burning because they are burning after 4 p.m. But if you will burn the ground, it will lead to black ash and black waste. And when the data is taken for burnt area, which is taken weekly, now all the black patches are shown. So what they've actually done is they have started to evade the satellite itself. Burnt area reveals that farmers' stubble burning is still happening. To avoid detection, farmers may have burnt stubble after satellites passes over the region, while farm fires are recorded daily, burnt area is recorded weekly. So they are evading the physical fire, but obviously when you burn stubble, it will lead to charring of the land itself. So now you tell me, how do the Punjab farmers know the exact moment in which a ISRO satellite is crossing on a daily basis, and how this is a failure of the whole Punjab Pollution Control Board, that on the ground realities are totally different. They are able to escape. For 1 year, Punjab farmers have been making a fool out of the satellite itself. So they, rather than stopping stubble burning, they just used to burn stubble once the satellite used to cross. We as Indians, we will not stop our behavior. We will rather find way how to evade that concept itself. उन्हें बोला, okay, you want to see, you want to capture images on a daily basis. ठीक है, मुझे पता है 3 बजे जाएगा. I know that it is going to go at 3 o'clock. I will burn after it goes. So according to that day's data, sun synchronous satellites don't have geostationary understanding. They don't look at the space throughout the day. They only look at it at a certain point of the day. So Punjab, now this data is paradoxical. Obviously it is paradoxical. How can you have burnt area decreasing? 70% of farmers were able to evade the satellite, but obviously the burnt area is increased. So this is another dimension which has emerged. A beautiful new dimension has emerged, that farmers, rather than following the new ways of not burning stubble, they said, okay, you will only get to know I'm burning stubble when you have data. Let me evade the data. So this is now a pure administrative failure. How is sensitive information like the crossing of the satellite? It's not a plane that you can see it. It's a satellite. They manipulated the data itself. So the manipulation of the data means that they actually have access to the sensitive information of a satellite going over the Punjab landscape at a certain given point of time. So beautiful. And now this has to be sorted. So why we are discussing this is how people tend to manipulate the system itself. Rather than stopping stubble burning, they wanted a pat on the back that, okay, see, stubble burning has decreased. Same data is now indicated something totally different. Right? So I hope that you understand how Punjab data, remote sensing data, is now basically useless. So between 2024 and 5, they will do the same thing. So we need a better fix for this so that the ambiguity in the data is not there. Sorted, everyone? It is very sensitive data. That is the whole point. Okay. Now, recently, in the just 2 days back, because of high imports of 2 commodities, monoethyl glycol and purified terephthalic acid, PTA and MEG. PTA and MEG, these 2 get imported mostly from Singapore, from Qatar and from Saudi Arabia. Recently, the government has seen that there's an exponential increase in the import. This means that there's a chance of dumping. Dumping means that the other country is just dumping into the Indian market very cheap MEG and PTA. The idea is that we have to protect the domestic, you can say, domestic industries also. So the government has what we call as decided to introduce what is called as anti-dumping duty, ADD, that we will push some duty over and above whatever the custom duty is on PTA and on what is called as MEG. Rather, it's not custom duty, it would be IGST, but the idea is very simple, that they are going to propose a ADD, anti-dumping duty on them. Now, the textile industry has recently urged the government of India not to introduce something like this because polyester fiber and filaments, any form of polyester based fabric which you use, the most important ingredients are this only, MEG and PTA. So the idea is that this 20% proposed ADD may disrupt the market with GST reduced on polyester based garments. What is the point of including the ADD? So it's just an urge from the producers not to distort the market and not introduce ADD. For you, what matters is Government of India has proposed something like this. You should know these two names, purified terephthalic acid and monoethyl glycol. What are they used for? They are used for production of polyester fiber and filament. This is very, very important because they can ask you in the examination, what are these chemicals used for or known for or used for in the larger scheme of textile industry. So this is important. Let's see if the ADD is removed or not. But this is what the context for something like this is, right? Now, moving on, this should be important and for you specifically because UPSC is finally got its understanding sorted, which is UPSC will now release the initial answer key of a certain prelims examination year, not after the whole cycle is over, which is prelims, mains. So today previously what used to happen was prelims used to happen, then mains, then interview, then the answer key for prelims used to come. What used to happen was students were not able to figure out if they were actually clearing this examination, prelims to mains. That is quite critical. Further, if there were issues, we did not know if questions have been dropped. Why did I not clear? How did I not clear? So UPSC has now taken a call that they will release initial answer key after prelims itself. They've not indicated how many days, and final answer key after the whole process is over. This has been an affidavit which has been pushed by the UPSC to the Supreme Court. The UPSC chairman recently in his podcast had not really indicated something like this, but there were a lot of questions. The logic which he gave was it takes a lot of time to review this and that. But finally, UPSC, after that whole town hall, and the chairman realizing that this is an unnecessary opaque process. UPSC is known for its integrity. UPSC is known for a certain landscape in which they are the best when it comes to testing. But by doing something like this, they used to create an unnecessary obstacle. So very simply, UPSC will release the answer key after the prelims. Now you will not be blindsided, and we will also understand what UPSC wants. Because in multiple cases, UPSC examiner logic does not go. So this is a welcome change in that regard. And we hope that UPSC will keep on changing its, you can say, opaque behavior, where simple, straightforward concepts are already very well logically established. Right? Yes. Manisha, I said that he has made a point to say that DigiLocker data will be picked up. So I would say that please update your Aadhaar. It's not, don't wait till Jan. Update your Aadhaar, get your Aadhaar linked to your number, and also open a DigiLocker account so that you are not caught off guard. You're not caught off guard. This was a very important thing which he had indicated in the town hall also, that DigiLocker is going to be used very soon to authenticate the certifications, because that is where people are mostly doing it. So please do link these things together. So again, welcome change. We've already talked about this quite a lot, but I hope that you will know this now. Okay, the last article is obviously when there will be election season, there will always be schemes, there will be new things coming through. And that is where, yes, the Prime Minister has recently launched multiple, you can say, schemes in Bihar. I've just put it down in this table so that you can use it. So there is now a new Mukhyamantri Sichai Swayam Sahitya Bhatta Yojana. It has been revamped where 1,000 allowance for 2 years to 5 lakh graduates, including free skill training, will be given. Then Bihar Student Credit Card Scheme has been redesigned for interest-free education loan up to 4 lakhs. Then there is some new university which has been inaugurated, Kapuri Thakur Skill University, which has been named after the former CM. NIT Patna Bhita campus has been inaugurated, and new academic and research facilities at least 4 foundation stones have been established. All development in Bihar happens before the elections, and then nothing for the next 5 years, then again before the elections, then nothing for the next 5 years. Basically, that is the cycle what Bihar follows. Now everybody will get everything, thereafter nothing will be given after the election is won. So this is a standard protocol in Bihar, but again, the government is going aggressive to show that it is trying to appease the people. How much of this will actually be implemented, laying the foundation is not equal to actually leading to something substantial, but the idea is this one. So before we close the session, let's revise everything which we've done so that you can just simply watch this session and you're done. So we discussed the concept of crowd management and how crowd management is an issue in India because of no centralized policy and there is no accountability and there is no framework, proper framework, and no binding structure. In that context, the way forward is to follow scientific principles of crowd management. This was the first thing which we discussed. The second major concept which we discussed was how CTET is being made mandatory retrospectively for a lot of teachers. You should know 2010 cutoff date. You should know section 23 and 2N of the Right to Education Act 2009, which has been quoted. Now this all is sub judice, so we really can't establish something like this right now. We have to see what happens in court. Then further we discussed something called MEG and PTA. These two are used in polyester production. Anti-dumping duty is being pushed. Let's see if it remains or not. Then we have discussed 5 schemes which Bihar has introduced. And the most interesting is how Punjab Pollution Control Board recently talked about 70% reduction in farm fires, but an increase from 19.41 lakh hectares to 19.17 lakh hectares of what is called as burnt area. Burnt area means that it was burnt in some way or the other. So if there are 70% less farm fires, how can the burnt area be increased? So the idea is that the fire black zones, are they called, they are increasing. So this is the paradox in the Punjab Pollution Control Board data. And the way they are doing it is by evading the satellite itself. The satellite which goes daily, it is not able to pick up the stubble burning, but the weekly assessment is able to pick up the patches where it has been burnt. Right? Okay. Tamanna, you should not worry about. That is purely, if you want to become an IAS officer, you don't have to worry about those things. Are they gaslighting or they're not gaslighting does not matter. Go by the PIB and go by the government line. That is going to help in the examination better. Okay. So on this note, this session is over. If you have any questions, you can push it right now. And I hope that all of this is sorted. Sunday newspaper, not a lot of articles, but whatever we had relevant for the examination. I left one article out of FAQ, which was the Nagaland education issue that is too specific for UPSC in that regard. And if it needs to be covered, we'll specifically cover it in a video itself. You will get this PDF in my Telegram channel, so don't worry about that. If you don't know the Telegram channel, just comment in the chat box, link to Telegram channel, I'll give you that also. Should I do crack UPSC? Sirat, if you are in 12th class or you have to first be a graduate to clear this examination. What should I do to crack this? What year are you, Sirat, in? Thank you. What year are you in? First year, second year, 3rd year, 12th, what? Where tomorrow there will be CNA, obviously. What you should do first year, you have 3 years in a very graded fashion. Create a model where you can slowly but surely cover everything. Cover the NCRTs first, then cover the standard books. If needed, join a certain, you can say, guided program that will help you in using these 3 years in the best way possible. So right now I'm focusing on optional. Should I be last attempt? There is no room for error. I'm just doing Hindu analysis. That is fine. That is fine. Manisha, do finish your optional preparation by November, December maximum. Optional cannot go beyond January, right? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.